Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a review on the Redemption Paintballs from Vulcan, Vulcan Sports. As you can see, here's the box, Vulcan, and as you can see on the side here, it is Redemption. What we got here is just my newest case, what I bought just like the past month here, and then we've got a little bit of older stuff that I've had for a month or two now. We'll be getting into that a little bit later. Basically, with this video, first I'm going to show you what you're going to get as when you buy a case, and then I'm going to go through kind of like the features and stuff, and then kind of compare them to some of the other leading brands in this price category, and kind of compare that, and then give it an overall rating after that. So we're going to get right in. The first thing we're going to do is basically show you the packaging, and Vulcan has to have some of the best paint packaging, okay? You've got the square box, which is not used too much. About half the companies use the square box, half of them use the more rectangular, I guess I should say. The box itself is very well, a little bit thinner on the cardboard on the outer shell, I guess you could say. But when you get inside, before you even get to the paint, you have another top layer of cardboard that's about the same thickness. Then inside, and I'm going to go ahead and show this and hopefully not get in the paint, you have 4 cubicles. And basically what those cubicles are, I've got one right here I've taken out, is another thicker, almost just as thick as the outside of the box, cubicle. So basically you've got 2 layers of cardboard, whereas most cases you only have 1. And then you've also got 2 layers on the inside with that. So it comes out to all sides have 2 layers of cardboard in between them. So it's very nice packaging, keeps your paint nice, and it's not going to be, you know, sitting on each other. It's got a lot of protection, and you're not going to have any problems with it having balls broken when you get the case and all that. You know, you don't have anything to worry there. As far as the bags, they are pre-sealed bags, not zip tied. They're twist tied. They're not twist tied. They're sealed with a silicone packet in there to keep all the moisture out as much as possible, and it works fairly well. Very rarely do you get a batch that's just really extremely oily on the outside. Most generally it's extremely dry, and of course it's 2,000 rounds, so just like any other case of paint you would get. Very nice packaging, very neat box. Their graffiti, which is a little bit lower end paint, has some really neat box. The Redemption got some color to it, and it's just really nice looking. I mean, it's just well done by Vulcan on the packaging. As far as the paint goes, as you can see here, we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. We have the fill and the shell. There is a lot of fill in these. As you can see here, when you compare it to the ball itself, there's a lot of fill in the shell, a lot more than I've seen some of the other paints out there, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But there's a lot of fill in the shell. The shell's a little bit thicker. I'm going to go ahead and try to show this on camera here if I can. Show the thickness. My camera will focus. As you can see, it's a tiny bit thicker shell than some of the other competition grade and leading grade paint, but it's still you know, you're not going to have any problems with it breaking in your gun at all, but it's going to break on your targets. I've used this paint for close to 3 months now, and I've used it for at least about 4 weekends, if not more. Shot about 2 cases of it, and I am really impressed with it. This is the older paint I have here. Oops, I gotta zoom out here. Oops. There you go. As you can see, this was the first case I bought, a blue and white ball with white fill. Not a big fan of white fill. Just don't care for that. I'd much rather have some color to it. This green and yellow has a yellow fill to it, which is better. I'd like to find some that has a green fill, but I don't have any at the moment. If you can kind of tell here, the paint colors are kind of weird. It looks like candy, to be quite honest. It just looks like, you know, Skittles or something. I don't know. It doesn't look that great to me. I would definitely like to see some more solid, you know, your greens and purples and stuff like that. Not necessarily these pastel colors here. That's just personal preference. That doesn't really matter. But anyways, getting on into the paint, very nice straight seal. This ball here, you can see really nice straight seal across. No squiggly lines, no weird seals on them, just straight and smooth, very smooth. The ball itself is almost dimple free. The first case I got was kind of old, and again I've had it for almost 2 months now. Just some I had left over, and there are a few dimples here and there. You can't really see it. There's not a whole lot in this one. It's not perfect. Let's just say that. It may not have dimples, but it's not perfect. These ones here are extremely round, extremely nice. Probably some of the best paint I've gotten a hold of as far as the smoothness and roundness of the ball, and probably some of the freshest stuff I've gotten. Our local store's kind of small, so we don't get fresh paint too often, but with the Vulcan, it's just really kept nice. As far as the paint fill, it's a thicker fill. It's not the thickest fill out there, but it definitely sticks to you, and I'm gonna show it here. It's, as you can see, it's a little bit runnier than I would like, but it's definitely a nice fill. Leaves a bright mark on your opponent, and you're not gonna have any problems with people wiping it at all. Okay, so that's the paint. Again, I'm really impressed with it. The only complaint I've had about the paint is it bores small. On an 85-degree day with a tiny bit of humidity, not a whole lot, we've seen 682 being able to stick this through a 682 no problem. Probably you could get away with a 680. Might be able to squeeze it through a 679. I mean, it's pretty small paint. It's not the best as far as that goes. It just bores really small, and that's 85-degree weather. When I get to the comparison here in a second, I'll kind of compare it to the others, but for the paint, it's pretty small bore. Other than that, I have had no complaints other than that. The next thing I wanted to get into is comparing Vulcan's paint with some of the other leading competition grade paint. I have used RPS since the beginning, for 2 years now. This year's the first year I've had Vulcan, had access to Vulcan, and have even shot Vulcan. And RPS is bar none still, in my opinion, the best paint you can buy. Now, that is as far as if price doesn't matter to you, okay? Vulcan paint is a lot cheaper than RPS, but it's not quite as high quality in my opinion. When you compare this to, say, Evil, which I'm not saying Ultra Evil, I'm just saying Evil, what you could really, basically this is what their paint is. This is the Evil of Vulcan. The paint itself is not as thick, it's not quite as gooey. This is a lot more runny than theirs, than Evil's. The shell is definitely a lot thicker. Now, when I say thicker, I'm not talking Walmart thick, okay? I'm not talking marbles. I'm just saying it's probably double the thickness of Evil. I found Evil, you could drop that from any height almost and it'll break. And Vulcan's a little bit thicker in the shell, which is good if you have a, lower end gun or a gun that is hard on paint. You don't want a really thin, brittle shell, otherwise you're going to be chopping paint all day. So, it kind of depends on what you're running. But for competition grade, it could be a little bit better when you compare it to Evil. Now, as far as the fill in the shell, boxing, obviously they beat RPS out on that. I really like their packaging, and I'm a big fan of as much protection for the paint as I can get. Other than that, as far as the shape and the roundness, it's probably, if not equal to Evil, maybe a tiny bit better as far as the roundness and the quality control of it. It's probably on the same line as Evil. When you compare it to Marbleizer, which both of these paints run, Marbleizer and Evil run, I believe, 70 retail. With Marbleizer, you've got, this is still a tiny bit thicker shell than Marbleizer, not quite as much as, say, Evil, but it is a little bit thicker shell than Marbleizer, and the fill is a little bit more runny than Marbleizer. However, this has just as much fill as Marbleizer does, and is probably just as bright as some of the Marbleizer I've seen out there as far as, being able to see it. As far as accuracy, I'm not even going to go there because I can't say whether or not I get paint that's a couple days old and I get paint that's 2 months old. Just because of the way the field setup is here, there's not a lot of players, so we have to deal with what we got. So I'm not going to go into all that, but as far as this, I would say it's definitely on par with Evil, on par with Marbleizer, maybe a tiny bit less as high a grade, definitely a lot less as high a grade of Evil, but then it comes down to price. Evil and Marbleizer, $70 retail. I am paying, now I can't say for sure on the retail, I'm paying $50 a case for redemption paint, which is extremely cheap. From a $70 to $50, that's unheard of. That's $20 difference, and for the paint, definitely redemption blows Evil and Marbleizer out of the water as far as money goes. If money's not an issue, I'd still definitely go with RPS. As far as the money goes, 20 bucks, oh my goodness, this paint is well worth the $50. It's worth 60. Now, Vulcan, don't get any ideas about jumping the price, please. We need paint as cheap as possible, but I would even be tempted to pay 60 for this whenever you're paying 70 for the others. For the price, definitely a great paint. I highly recommend it, especially if you're wanting to play, you know, tournament style, tournament level, and not have to pay quite as high as a fee compared to RPS. I can't say much as far as GI Sports. I've not used any of theirs, nor have I used Drax's, so I apologize for that. Again, we don't get that in at our store, so I don't have access to it. But as far as RPS and Marbleizer, for the money, redemption all the way. I highly recommend it. For the quality, if money's not an issue, I definitely still go with Evil. Marbleizer is probably on par. If it was the same price, I would definitely say Marbleizer, but for the price, you can't beat redemption right now. I mean, top of the line paint right now for the price just is amazing. So as far as the paint goes, I would give overall a 9.5 out of 10, or excuse me, sorry, a 9 out of 10 as far as overall everything. The only thing I'm kind of disappointed is I wish they would give a tiny bit bigger bores, so some of the stock barrels, not necessarily for me because I use a barrel kit, but for some of those stock players out there that, you know, don't have the barrel kits and stuff, it would be awesome to see a little bit bigger shell and a little bit thinner shell. Fill's not too big of a deal. It breaks perfectly and you're not going to have people cheating on you, but I would love to see a tiny bit bigger ball and a little less on the thickness of the shell. Other than that, 9 out of 10. As far as the paint goes, the fill goes, I'd give it probably an 8.5, 9. It's a little bit too runny for my taste, but it'll work, you know, you're not gonna have problems with it. The shell, again, I would give it probably an 8.5. As far as the boxing, 10 out of 10. You can't do any better than that. So overall, again, 9 out of 10. Definitely recommend it for the price. You cannot beat it. It's unbeatable for the price right now. For 50 bucks a case, that's amazing. Now maybe a little bit more for you, but as far as price wise, definitely go with redemption. As far as quality, if you're not a big deal on price, I would definitely still stick with Evil and Marbleizer. Hopefully this guy has helped, guys. I'll get in a little bit more in-depth video maybe later once I can use some Draxis and I can use some GI Sports, but as of now I'm not going to get into the comparing all the high-end paints because it's just not worth my time right now, being I haven't used the others. But I hope the review has helped on the redemption. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below. Rather not messages, those are kind of hard to keep track of, but definitely leave them in the comment box, so if I miss the question, somebody else can answer it for you, and that would be great. So if you have any ideas, again, leave those in the comment box below, and if you haven't already, go subscribe. Definitely got more videos coming out for you soon. So thanks guys for watching, and hopefully you guys have a great day.